Good Sunday morning. In Latin, Habemus Papam. In English, we have a pope. And in Rome, an American-born pontiff for the first time ever.
Habemus Papam.
This was the moment Pope Leo XIV was introduced to the world. Born in Chicago but shaped by a global mission, former Cardinal Robert Francis Provost most recently rose to head of the Vatican's most influential offices, guiding appointments of bishops across the world. Pope Leo XIV joined the Augustinian mission while in Peru in 1985, becoming part of a religious order inspired by Saint Augustine, rooted in unity, truth, and charity, and built on community, humility, and poverty. Back at home, the news broke just before noon mass at the San Agustin Cathedral. Parishioners we caught up with rejoiced at the news, wished him well, and prayed that he would be a faithful steward of the Catholic Church and its mission. With great joy, the Diocese of Laredo rejoiced at the news of the 267th successor to St. Peter. The diocese also acknowledging the strong connection between Pope Leo XIV and his Augustinian heritage, drawing parallels with the diocese's own Augustinian roots embodied in their patron saint and the cathedral named in his honor. The diocese also highlighted the prominent role of Augustinian priests in their ministry, sharing in the same spiritual tradition of the Pope. The diocese connecting these values with those that are so dear to the heart of South Texas. Lastly, marking the era of a new papacy with the prayer of thanksgiving and intercession of Saint Augustine. And to talk more about the Holy Father is Father Joe Cadena, joins us this morning. He's with Divine Mercy Catholic Church. Also joining us is Andrew Carranco, a Laredoan and devout Catholic. And we also have Luis Villarreal, KGNS News General Manager.
Also a devout Catholic.
Also a devout Catholic.
I just want to
Good
say.
morning. Good morning.
Yes.
Father Andrew Boss. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much. We appreciate having you with us. Oh my gosh, don't even know where to start. Such a beautiful moment.
Yeah, it's historic, obviously, and it's just incredibly exciting. I'm not sure if it's really kind of settled in for me just yet. The priests of the Diocese of Laredo were actually on convocation this week, and we got the news actually in the middle of Mass. So that was interesting. During Mass, we were like, well, do we say his name already? I guess we do. And actually, no, they hadn't announced the name he had taken yet. So we knew there was a new pope, but we didn't know what his name was going to be just yet.
Did you? And you all found out right there and then that he was an American pope?
We figured that out a little bit later because we just heard Habemus Papam, and then that's all we heard for a while until after Mass. Then we heard the rest of it.
Yeah.
And actually, I was listening to Cardinal Dolan talk about how when they were interviewing him over the last couple of weeks, or people were talking to, he didn't even mention Pope Leo or Cardinal Francis, Robert Francis, as a possibility of one of the American cardinals because it wasn't even in the picture, right? Mm-hmm. So it was a bit surprising.
Yeah, there's a lot being said about why an American pope had never been considered before. Andrew, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about what some of the pundits are talking about, how they just didn't feel like they wanted to give the United States even more power over the Catholic Church. But what does this mean to have an American pope?
Well, there's a couple of things when you look at the election of a pope. First, you have to make the first consideration that everything that the cardinals do are guided by the Holy Spirit. I mean, and that's kind of difficult for a lot of folks in our modern age to grasp because you really have to go about this on faith purposes. The second thing is the earthly reasons. So a lot of people have seen the movie Conclave, which there's some theologically interesting parts about that, and also politically interesting parts. I would say it's a very good guide to how conclaves actually work. But there is political intrigue in conclaves, and part of that, living in our secular world, is that the United States is widely considered the greatest superpower on earth right now. And sometimes you want to separate that. In the early church, there was a concern with something called Kaiser-Opapism. Kaiser-Opapism is the unification of the papacy and the temporal world. That was a big issue in the Eastern Roman Empire. That's not a problem right now. What happened, I think, personally, was that with the election of an American pope and the way that came out, he was not widely considered highly papable. Papable means that he was elected, being able to be elected pope. it would seem to me that he was a compromise pope, that, there was a strong German front runners, strong Filipino front runners, African front runners. They didn't get elected. They chose an American pope, and I think that's because he keeps fairly theologically moderate views that satisfied everyone in the conclave.
So do you think that we're going to see a little bit of Pope Francis and a little bit of Pope John Paul, Pope Benedict? Do you think he's just going to be a combination of all?
Well, he'll be first Pope Leo, and I think that's important to distinguish because he is, theologically speaking, he comes from he's an Augustinian, which is different than how Francis was raised, and it was different how Benedict or John Paul came up. I suspect if you wanted to compare him to people, he's probably going to be Francis light and Benedict light. He does keep that, and he does have aspects of both those popes.
He's also a canon lawyer, and so that's an interesting element in and of itself. I remember in seminary, one of my professors used to refer to canon law as the dark side of the gospel. As a Star Wars fan, I love the image, right? The dark side of the gospel. He's like, yeah, so there's a darkness to it in that it's legalese, and it can often is thought of as just this very dry, and you kind of wonder, like, why are we bothered by some of this? But he says at the end of the day, this is a reflection of the gospel. It's meant for the salvation of souls. So I think it'll be really interesting to see what a canon lawyer at the helm of the church kind of where he leads us. And I think the fact that he took on the name Leo also, I started rereading Rerum Novarum, which is Pope Leo XIII's great encyclical on social justice, what we now kind of see as the kind of the foundations of Catholic social justice. So I started rereading it. So it'll be interesting to see what that kind of shows in the future too.
So, and as the statement from Bishop Tamayo mentioned, and obviously is very apparent to us, obviously the connection of being an American is interesting. But the Augustinian part of it and our own connection to our own diocese, now in how we move into the 25th anniversary of our diocese, it's kind of interesting and kind of poignant, I think, to go through this election.
Yeah, it seems very providential, right?
Yes.
That our diocese, who was established, erected by Pope John Paul II, now celebrating its 25th year, and has as our patron saint, Saint Augustine, to now see an Augustinian pope. Yeah, it's exciting.
And speaking of the 25th anniversary, a lot of stuff going on, Father.
Yes, we've had stuff going on. We had a great event for our high schoolers back in January. Over 1,000 young Catholic teens showed up for this great event of prayer, of worship. We spent some time before the Blessed Sacrament. We've had Eucharistic processions across the city of Laredo and in Eagle Pass. And coming up, we've had a luncheon, and now we have a gala coming up, and then we kind of celebrate the ending of this, our own little mini jubilee compared to the universal jubilee. We finish it off with an awesome mass, hopefully standing room only at the arena.
Well, then that's on August 9th, Father, right?
That's right.
August 9th. And letting the cat out of the bag here, if you don't make it in, which we hope you can make it to the arena, there will also be opportunities for you to watch at home as well.
That's right.
So.
Wow. I wanted to ask, just real briefly, because just for y'all's opinion, because we now have an American Pope, do you think that is going to bring more Americans into the Catholic faith? We are now going to have a Pope that many, for whatever reason, maybe now they'll feel, a little bit more relevance, a little bit more connection with the Pope and the Catholic faith, because he's going to be able to, speak the language and be understood. Do you think we might see just maybe a surge in the Catholic faith under Pope Leo?
I certainly hope so. I think historically, the countries from where our Holy Fathers come from historically have seen a bump in vocations to the priesthood. So that's hopefully it will be a continuing trend. And certainly, one of my really good friends is a priest in Chicago, and he sent me a message last night. He says it's just so cool. He says there's a certain closeness that I feel to him, even though I've never met him. He goes, I think he phrased it as, he's just a dude from the South Side. So it's incredibly relatable to him, and somebody that maybe, has had a Portillo's hot dog and maybe likes deep dish and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there is a certain relatability now
Right.
with the Holy
Father Bob is, I guess,
what they used to
Father
refer to him
Bob.
as. Yeah.
Father.
Well, I have a friend of mine in Chicago, and I'm going to one-up you on that, is that he said, "Now, get this, Andrew, that my godmother was friends with his mother, and he'd come over to my godmother's house."
Wow.
I mean, but it's that close, and it's that, I mean, and I'm going to agree with you. I hope it's increased the vocations.
Yeah, I'm praying for it.
I just feel like, you know, whenever we've seen former popes, I mean, obviously we think the world and very highly of them. This one, though, we can actually just, you know, he's one of us, and you know, I'd like to take a trip to the Vatican now to go see him, and I don't think I ever felt like that before, and I think that's a pretty good thing.
Well, you say he's one of us, and I think that's really important to talk about, because we often look at the Pope. Some people say that popes speak with infallibility, and that hasn't happened in 100 years. It's a very, and he'll know this better than anyone else, is that popes are the human representative of the divine, which means that he's just like us. He can make mistakes, he can say the wrong things, he can act incorrectly, but ultimately everything he does should be, if he gives himself up completely, guided by the Holy Spirit. And that's really cool, because it's someone just like you or me, someone who has a cup of coffee and enjoys a Chicago hot dog.
Yeah, I was going to say, and deep dish pizza.
Saint Augustine himself said, you know, and I'm going to misquote him, but at least paraphrase him correctly, hopefully, is that he said, "For you I am bishop, but with you I am a Christian." And so if that's his spiritual father, hopefully he'll kind of follow in that suit, acknowledging that he is like us in everything, which I think reminds us also that as much as we're doing all this kind of speculating and kind of wondering, like, what's it going to be like, you know, having this new American Pope, I think one of the things that we have to remember is that first and foremost, we should pray for him, right? He has inherited a tremendously great burden, but also something that is holy and beautiful, but will essentially take the rest of his life. And so there's a reason why he goes into that room of tears before he comes out and greets people.
Well, definitely amen to that. We will definitely pray for him. Thank you all so much for joining us. Appreciate your insight as always. And when we come back, the Texas Democratic Party takes aim at Congressman Henry Cuellar, but the Laredo lawmaker fires back, saying they've got it all wrong. Stay with us for that. Welcome back, everyone. Well, a Democrat in name only. That's what the Texas Democratic Party says, that Congressman Henry Cuellar has the name, but not the values of being one. According to the Texas Tribune, the Texas Democratic Party will consider a resolution to condemn Congressman Henry Cuellar later this month. If it passes, the party's sanctions will revoke resources, ban Cuellar from party events, and encourage others to deny requests by Cuellar to attend events. The proposal comes after the congressman broke with the party in multiple votes this year and an upcoming federal trial in September. It comes amid a change of leadership at the top of the state Democratic Party, with Kendall Shooter elected as party chair at the end of March. In response, Congressman Henry Cuellar pointing to recent results and the backing of his constituents, also notably pointing out that local Democratic Party chairs were not brought into the discussion. And here with us is a longtime friend of the program, former Webb County Democratic Party chair, Sergio Mora. Good morning, Sergio. Welcome back to Beyond the Headlines.
Good morning, guys.
Morning, Sergio.
Great to be here.
Well, we appreciate you zooming in with us this morning. Sergio, what do you think about this? This is something that was very unexpected.
Yeah, I mean, there's, like you said, Mindy, there's been a change. The chairmanship of the party passed from Gilberto Hinojosa from Brownsville to a new chairman, Kendall Scudder. I was wondering what direction the party was going to take, and this is not reassuring. You have to also take into account, though, that this is the resolutions committee of the State Democratic Executive Committee that passed this resolution. Then it's going to go before the full SDEC, before the full executive committee, which is made up of like around 70 members. I think that the meeting's on May the 12th, if I'm not mistaken. So it isn't final, but the vote during the resolutions committee meeting was overwhelming. But I think that this is just the wrong step to take in terms of the Texas Democratic Party has much, much, much bigger problems than Henry Cuellar. And I don't think that the party should be in the business of administering purity tests, especially how the Texas Democratic Party has performed in South Texas, where Donald Trump won in Webb County, won up and down the border. And they're telling us that if you don't align with specific issues that the resolutions committee members embrace, or that members of the party and other parts of the state embrace, then you're not a good Democrat. I just think that that's not the right step to take.
Is that the same? I mean, I guess are these the same extremists that exist in both parties, Sergio, that keep pulling away at the center and driving people to the edges of the parties that, you know, you and I have always talked about how that is at the root of all of our problems, right? That we're getting pulled into, and whenever you have the audacity to be a moderate in any way, shape, or form, you get ostracized by it. So I mean, you know, whether you support Congressman Cuellar or not, I think the idea that you have to, as you call it, to have a purity test on either party, I think is wrong. I mean, I think it is more problematic to face it.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially, Sergio, what you said, this isn't the right time for that. At a time when Democrats are trying to win back seats, now they're, like you said, doing a purity test on Democrats that already hold a seat. You know, I mean, their priorities should be looking at what can they do to fix the problems that exist within the Democratic Party. So I wanted to talk to you, Sergio, also about Congressman Cuellar's response that no one from the counties of the district that Congressman Cuellar represents were even reached out to. So
consulted on.
Consulted. So does that mean that is this just another showing that the Democratic Party is just so out of touch with what's going on in their individual counties that make up the Democratic Party?
Yeah, you're right. The executive committee of the party is composed of 2 members per congressional district. I don't know exactly the makeup of the resolutions committee that authored and passed this resolution. But the thing is that I consider it also sort of insulting to Webb County and Laredo, considering that Henry Cuellar won 60% of the vote in Webb County in his last election, and that post-indictment. And I mean, that's another issue, is that they cite the indictment as one of the reasons for this resolution. And I mean, now in a time when the Donald Trump administration is completely throwing away, disregarding due process, the Texas Democratic Party appears to be doing the same, in that they have already found Henry guilty and have tried him and have convicted him. And that's a very, very wrong step to take symbolically. The Democratic Party should wait till the results of the upcoming trial to render a verdict in that regard. But the thing is that, like, you have Hispanics in South Texas that are socially conservative. Henry Cuellar knows how to appeal to the people that elected him and who he represents in terms of immigration, in terms of abortion, in terms of this very, very divisive issue, the transgender sports issue. All of those issues are issues where he is more aligned with South Texas voters than the Austin people that are leading the party. So I mean, I think that this just sends wrong signals up and down in terms of the role of the Democratic Party, the purity test that it's administering, and also, I mean, there was a time where the parties weren't necessarily left or right, conservative or liberal. That's a fairly recent development, and for the party to say, okay, you're not sufficiently liberal, so we don't want you, especially when the Texas Democratic Party hasn't won a statewide election in over 30 years, I think that it needs to look inward and say, okay, why aren't we winning? Why have we lost South Texas? those are the problems that the Texas Democratic Party should be focusing on.
Yeah, absolutely, Sergio. So what do you think is going to happen when it does go before the big committee for a vote in the latter part of May?
I don't know the makeup of the executive committee, but I mean, if the resolutions committee vote is any indication, it doesn't look good. But at the same time, Kendall Scudder needs to look at this and say, hey, is this the first big move from my leadership that the party needs to be embracing? Because it made national news. And I mean, also an important thing to point out is that Pete Aguilar, the chairman of the House Democratic Caucus, they asked him about this, and he spoke very highly of Congressman Cuellar, saying that his contributions to the Democrats up in Washington are profound and vast. So this is not the National Democrats. This is the Texas Democratic Party under new leadership. And this also fits into this whole big divide in the party. And there was recently a very high-profile debate between David Hogg, the Parkland shooter survivor, and James Carville, the Clinton campaign manager and Democratic strategist, where they're like, okay, where does the party need to be? I mean, I am of the opinion, James Carville of the opinion, is that those specific issues that are being embraced like uncompromisingly by the hard left are the issues that helped us lose and helped get Donald Trump elected. Yeah. So there's a lot of soul searching, but I think that this is exactly the move that the Democrats should not be taking at this very, very important time. Right now, it's not whether you're a conservative or a liberal Democrat that's the issue. It's all of us against Donald Trump and the MAGA movement that has just consumed the Republican Party.
Yeah. Sergio, in just the few seconds that we have left, worst case scenario, they vote in favor of the resolution. What happens with Congressman after that? Does he have any repercussions that are going to affect him?
I don't think anything happens. I mean, they talk about not sharing their resources. I mean, I checked that they give approximately $4,000 to congressional candidates each election cycle.
That's what I thought.
Henry spent $2.5 million last election cycle.
Yeah. So they're raising the money on their own. So it's just a small little amount.
He contributes way more to the Texas Democratic Party than the Texas Democratic Party contributes to him. So, I mean, this is just a weird flex. There was no reason, absolutely, for this to be done. It divides the Democrats when they need to be united. Will Henry face a primary opponent? It's possible, and there's already a bunch of Republicans that are lining up against him. But I don't think it's the role of the Democrat leadership to get involved in Democratic primaries. They should not get involved. The voters are the ones that choose who the Democratic nominee is, and there shouldn't be any fingers on the scale put by the Democratic Party leadership.
I guess they didn't learn anything by the whole Kamala fiasco of just absolutely pushing President Biden out and giving her the nomination without due process.
We're taking steps backward, not forward.
I agree.
Okie doke, gentlemen. Well, thank you, Serge. We appreciate having you back with us for this important topic. And we are going to take a quick break. When we come back, what the one thing is that Luis and I can't stop thinking about. Welcome back, everyone. It's the one thing that Luis and I just cannot stop thinking about this week. Luis.
You know, I was fortunate, Mindy. I think we've been fortunate to live through some really interesting sporting times.
Yeah.
And this past week, Coach Pop from the Spurs officially retired as the coach of the Spurs. And you can see Tim and Manu, and he went from being the coach, and this was cool, to call him El Jefe. So he's still with the Spurs, but, you know, longest tenured coach.
And winningest coach, right?
And the longest tenured coach in professional sports right now.
Wow. Wow. Well, we're going to miss
Pop.
Well, we're going from Pop to Pope, because, of course, my one thing, I still get chills every time I think about our new Pope that we have. Now, we're showing you Americo Alves Cardinal because this was the one that I had picked. We did a kind of like a little quiz on
Cardinal finder.
Which cardinal, yes, that we would most align with, and this one was mine. But I love our new Pope. I love that he's an American, and I can't wait to see what he has moving forward. So USA, definitely. Well, that's all the time we have for this issue of Beyond the Headlines. Thank you so much for joining us, sticking around with us. We will see you next Sunday for another episode. Happy Mother's Day to everybody out there.
Happy Mother's Day.